He joins us on Fridays to talk about those things that we're streaming. He's the Coastal Commuter column author, I guess would you say? The author of the Coastal Commuter column? Yeah. Or you could say the columnist under the banner Coastal Commuter. Yeah. Or you could just call him the Culture Blaster. Yeah. You can see I'm fading on a Friday. I really can't even introduce a guest who's regularly with us. He's our Michael Snyder. He comes in on a wave and rainbow. Michael Snyder, everybody.
Hey there, Michael.
Greetings, everyone. Memorial Day weekend, and Memorial Day is a time to mourn the brave souls who lost their lives defending our country. But is anybody going to mourn those craven, cowardly Republicans who just lost their minds defrauding our country? Wow.
Yeah, boy, I can't disagree. I think it's the GOP does not distinguish themselves in this moment. It's a sad, sad thing. Michael Snyder wading into with a little politics here, Brett. It's very impressive.
Wait,
really
nice. Guys, yeah. I have another serious question. Does crushing on Emma Stone as the young Cruella DeVille make me a bad person?
I think there's a hint of desperation. I really do.
Well, maybe there's a hint of desperation, Michael. Have you thought about that? You do not like this Cruella?
Whoa, no, I didn't say that. Regarding the new movie Cruella, because, hey, it's movie review time.
Yes, sir.
The Mouse House, Disney, has done it again in their bottom line driven campaign to exploit all of their intellectual property, even giving their most vile villains origin stories that position them as anti-heroes. Remember, we had Maleficent with Angelina Jolie as the Haunted Witch, explaining why she has a complicated relationship with Princess Aurora. Now we've got Emma Stone starring in the backstory of Cruella DeVille, from abused but creative weirdo kid to punk fashionista to, one would presume, Dalmatian-obsessed lunatic, although we see no evidence that suggests a tendency towards puppy side. Disney has released a couple of Maleficent movies, then a Cruella movie, using Godzilla and Kong as a template. How much longer till we get Maleficent versus Cruella, evil women gone wild? I ask you. Anyway,
it's about
the movie.
As bad as it can possibly get.
Yes, it is. It's about as bad. So the movie, do you, by the way, when you talk about this, for those of us who aren't steeped in this world the way you are, Cruella is who?
Well, Cruella DeVille is the villainess in the 101 Dalmatians cartoon, and they did a live action in the mid-'90s with a sequel, both starring Glenn Close chewing the scenery as Cruella. And I guess, Disney wants to exploit its IP. And this is actually as visually stunning in its 1960s, 1970s pop culture evocation as you could want. That's when they said it. You got young adult Estella, because that's her real name, a wannabe fashion designer, coming to London from the boonies and living a hard knock life, picking people's pockets after she's taken under the wings of a pair of kind of Artful Dodger type scam artists, given pretty vivid life by Joel Fry and Paul Walter Hauser. But this leads Cruella, or Estella, if you will, to getting a menial job at the fashion house of the Baroness, a highfalutin Devil Wears Prada, Anna Wintour type, played to a fare thee well by Emma Thompson, who was both inspiration and nemesis to Emma Stone's Estella. So Estella takes on the moniker of Cruella when she decides to bring down the Baroness. Maybe this should have been called the Devil Wears Prada. Anyway, it's pretty contrived. The script is a blithe mishmash of youth culture, rock and roll, rebellion, and psychodrama with kind of an undercurrent of, are you ready? Dickensian striving, like Charles Dickens.
Sure.
Anyway, the dueling Emmas are a delight. And at one point, Stone delivers a line that actually made me laugh so suddenly and so hard that it was kind of like a spit take minus the spit. And I should note that the movie's director, Craig Gillespie, has made some really cool and offbeat films, including I, Tonya, which I loved, and the bizarre but charming Lars and the Real Girl. And I guess his oddball sensibility is behind a lot of the fizz and the fun here. But Cruella is still ultimately product. And by the way, there are hints of the 101 Dalmatians to come, even if we already had those live action versions. Cruella is in theaters and available as premium content on Disney Plus.
Wow, very, very well done. I will also quickly draw your attention, everyone, to the use of the word evocation. Yes, that is nice. Very strong, and it doesn't stop there. I will also grant a ding for Blythe. Yeah, I think that is a strong, big-brained word. So continue. Cruella in those places. Now what's next, Michael?
Okay. For anyone who saw and was excited by the super creepy, incredibly effective sci-fi thriller A Quiet Place, there's a sequel with a little bit of prequel at the top, and it's very, very good. Like the first movie, A Quiet Place Part 2 is written and directed by actor John Krasinski. The first one was the feature filmmaking debut for Krasinski. You know him as the star of The Office US and the Jack Ryan series. But as was the case then, the follow-up is an assured and effective movie. I don't want to spoil anything for those who have not seen the first A Quiet Place, and you should, scary movie fans. But I can at least tell you that what you find out right at the start is that killer aliens have invaded Earth. As in the first movie, A Quiet Place Part 2 is about the small-town Abbott family, dad, mom, and the kids, trying to save themselves from these monsters. Krasinski and Emily Blunt are the father and mother, and the Abbotts' harrowing journey continues here with their deaf daughter, beautifully played by Millicent Simmons, taking an even more significant role in the family's survival. Also, Cillian Murphy, best known these days as Peaky Blinders mob boss Tommy Shelby, and Jimon Honsu are on board here. You were saying?
No, I didn't say anything. No, I'm listening.
Anyway, this is
Jimon Honsu's on board. Yeah, okay.
Is already in theaters today, finally, or last Friday, I guess. Well, anyway, you know what? It's in theaters, and if you're interested, that's the place to catch it right now. Although I guess as a Paramount picture, I guess it'll show up on the Paramount Plus streaming service pretty soon.
And that's called A Quiet Place Part 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's out there in theaters, and if, are you immunized? Check it out. Okay. Riders of Justice is a Danish thriller that never does what you think it's going to do, and thus it keeps you on tenterhooks throughout. It's clever and strange and surprisingly droll, and at times erupts with blasts of violence that are startling and effective, but most of all, it features yet another terrific character study provided by Denmark's most acclaimed leading man, Mads Mikkelsen, who recently displayed his range as a timid teacher on a booze bender in the Oscar winner Another Round. Here he plays Marcus, a special forces guy with a hair-trigger temper, returning home from the Middle East after tragedy strikes his family in the form of a fatal accident. Imagine an angry, disturbed Mel Gibson speaking Danish and minus the anti-Semitism. Anyway, that's how Nicholson comes off as a guy seeking those responsible for his personal loss and willing to do anything to settle the score. Marcus is given a target for his rage when three misfit techie hacker types approach him with what seems to be evidence that the accident was in fact planned, and the plot thickens with Marcus's traumatized teenage daughter, her boyfriend, a gang of cold-hearted mobsters. They're all folded into the mix. Although Riders of Justice has a few seemingly familiar elements, the director and screenwriter, a guy named Anders Thomas Jensen, comes at these things in very unexpected ways. And this wonderful cast, led by Mads the Man, deploys everything with quirky verve. It's in theaters and available for streaming via Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube, Vudu, and Fandango now. Riders of Justice.
Riders of Justice, and that's subtitles. You have to be hip for subtitles, right?
Yeah. Come on, get with the program. Read.
By the way,
Mark, reading is fundamental. Mark,
reading is fundamental. Droll gets a dig. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. Continue.
Sticking with horror and sci-fi, there's Oxygen. This is a wonderfully claustrophobic movie from Chiller Diller director Alexander Aja, with France's Melanie Laurent of Inglourious Bastards fame, as a woman who wakes up in what appears to be a cryogenic pod with no idea how she got there, where it is, why she's there, or how she's going to get out. And as she tries to unravel the mystery while trapped in the pod, it's excruciating in a delicious and somewhat sadistic way, with surprising turns that set it apart from a similarly confined thriller, the 2010 Ryan Reynolds vehicle Buried. Oxygen is in French, so you will have to again deal with subtitles, but it's totally worth it. And you can turn on an English language track. It's available for streaming on Netflix right now.
Wow, that sounds kind of cool. It's a great premise. So the premise is that she wakes up. It's a cryogenic thing, but she's trapped in the cryogenic. She wakes up, and is that what you're saying?
Has no idea where she is, how she got there, and how to get out. It's good stuff, man. And again, if you've got a claustrophobia issue, hey, don't watch. Okay. I like me a good film noir, and I found me a very solid modern one from Australia with The Dry, which is an absorbing mystery set in a desolate but visually compelling location. The Dry is definitely enhanced by the presence of a well-known tough guy Aussie actor, Eric Bana. He's in the lead as Aaron Falk, a federal detective who returns to his rural hometown during a drought that has devastated the area's farms and forests and put citizens in dire financial straits. The reason he's visiting is attending a funeral for a boyhood friend and that guy's wife and child, and the dead man purportedly shot and killed the wife and child, only sparing their baby, then killed himself. But enough doubts are raised about the crime that Aaron is convinced to stick around and help a local cop get to the truth of the murders, but he's kind of a local pariah, having left town as a teen after another tragic event that triggered strife, with a lot of loose ends that lingered on. I thought this was pretty powerful stuff. Adapted by director, co-screenwriter Robert Connolly from Jane Harper's best-selling novel, The Dry Kept Me Guessing, and even delivered some surprises. I thought this was pretty hot stuff. It's a dry heat. Anyway, in theaters and streaming via Amazon Prime and Google Play. And quickly, I really have to mention, particularly Memorial Day weekend being upon us, Final Account is another sort of horror movie in the never forget department. It's a documentary in Luke Holland's investigation into the mindset of surviving Germans who were citizens during Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, including interviews with former Nazi soldiers and party members and regular civilians who may or may not have been complicit in the Holocaust. So you've got talking heads from Hitler Youth members and SS officers to nurses and housewives, and they speak of their lives then and the way they view the events of the past in retrospect. Some shocking things said, and the interview sequences are interspersed with archival film footage and photos that are as disturbing as you'd expect. This and movies and books like it need to remain in circulation. Again, we can't forget what happened and what terrible things humans are capable of doing to one another for no sane reason. Final Account, only in theaters at the moment, but sure to be streaming in the near future and just as effective as home viewing, I would think. Wow,
very powerful. The whole list of the films, Cruella, A Quiet Place Part 2, Riders of Justice, Oxygen, The Dry.
Yep.
Did you do that? Yeah, The Dry and Final Account, yeah. They're on Michael's Twitter feed, which is @CultureBlaster on Twitter. And you can get the full list. Brett, before we say goodbye to Michael, we are late, but would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. Is Oxygen based on a true story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. I love it. He is the Culture Blaster, nice enough to spend time with us every Friday. Thank you, Michael. Have a good weekend.